time of death and leading up to death, because the body goes through a process. Normally, the body goes through a process of dying. If there is a sudden death, then it's different. But if the person has a lingering disease, condition of some kind, then the body starts shutting down long before the actual time of death. The elements start shutting down. Now, it's important that if you're working with someone who's going through the dying process, that you educate them, because when these elements start to shut down, it can become kind of scary to the person because they don't understand what's happening. So if you educate yourself, and then you can help educate someone else that you may, a loved one that maybe is going through that process, and you can help them understand what's happening. The first element to shut down is earth, the most gross element. And we see this happening in that the person's diet, their food preference might change. Instead of having heavier food that they're not able to digest anymore, they'll prefer lighter things like soups or puddings. I know my mother loved her creamy pudding when she was at the end of her life. And other symptoms of the earth shutting down is the digestion gets very slow to the point where it needs help, either some kind of supplement or something else to help the bowels move. The body will feel heavy, and there'll be more of a sluggishness in the energy. Sometimes the person will have a hard time moving their limbs. It'll become harder for them to move and walk without assistance. The second element, as the earth element dissolves, then it goes into the water element is affected. The water element, the body will become dry. All the mucous membranes will be dry. The mouth, the eyes, the skin will become dry and the skin will become almost translucent, very easy to bruise and to injure. The person's identity is less attached to the solid, and they will have a feeling of fluidity. Now, in our meditation, it's more common for us to also have these sensations. Like when we have our deep relaxation after a meditation, we can have that feeling of weightlessness or letting go. And so that can also be a training for us to not be afraid of these sensations. The circulation becomes sluggish in the water element dissolving, and the blood settles at the extremities, resulting in feelings of lightness, lightheadedness. From the water element, it goes into the fire element. At this point, the skin and the body becomes cool because it loses the fire. It loses the kapha in the body. And so the skin will become very cold, and you might, if you were with someone dying and they'll say, oh, I'm so cold, I need more blankets. And it can be in the middle of summer. So this is all natural. And their hands and feet will become very cold. So this is a good time for a gentle hand and foot massage, nothing heavy because they're so fragile and easy to bruise, but just holding the hands even, or holding the feet to help them to stay warm. The skin will also become more pale, and they can kind of take on a totem look. And you look at them and they look like they're very old souls. They kind of take on a timeless look to them. And they also continue to feel weightless, like there are no boundaries. They're boundaryless. The last element to go is air. And you will notice a difference in their breathing, where their breathing can be erratic. There can be an inhale and then a pause. And then an exhale and a pause. And you'll sit there and think, oh my gosh, are they going to breathe again? And then all of a sudden there will be a breath, and they'll continue breathing. There can be different sounds, a rattling sound that results, that comes out. And this process of the air element dissolving can take a while. It can take a couple of days. It can go very fast. And that's an important thing to realize, is that these elements, there is no time constraint of how long it takes for these elements to dissolve. Sometimes they go quickly, sometimes it takes a long time, and it also depends on if the person is holding on. And one thing that you can do for someone who's holding on is to chant Kirtan Suila for them, and to also be telling them, either verbally or through your meditation, just to hold them, hold their soul, so that it can go through its process with ease. And I wanted to read you, this is a quote from one of our young men, Siddhi Amrit Singh, who gave me an interview about when his grandfather was dying. And he told me what it was like for him when he was sitting with his grandfather. And he said, quote, as it came closer and closer, his physical body energetically shrunk. I could see his body disintegrating, his elements disappearing. I could see it. Then he lost control of his bodily functions. It was the smell of death. As the time went on, his face was absolutely radiant, and his eyes were powerful. There was like a glow about his whole head, and everything else was just nothing. Like a curtain, not even there. I would sit with him and joke with him, or sit and hold his hand and meditate with him. I would talk to him, not verbally. It was really amazing. I could sense where he was, and we talked soul to soul. I want to emphasize this, that when you are with someone that's dying, and it's not possible for one reason or another to talk to them out loud, you can always talk to them, your third eye to theirs, your soul to theirs, your heart to theirs. And this can be very effective, especially if you're in a room with other relatives or other people that are not into it, that are not conducive to this type of work, you can always do it non-verbally. And it's just as powerful. Sometimes it's even more powerful because you're taking the personality and the ego out of it.